Hello, and welcome to another episode of the DevLab podcast. In this episode, we're joined by three incredible professionals from Leonardo: Kristy Ireland, a senior systems engineer; Henrietta Hegedus, manufacturing engineer; and Lila Rose, who is a lead data scientist for the cyber division. Together, they'll share their unique career journeys from Kristy's transition into aerospace engineering, Henrietta's move from Hungary to the UK's engineering sector, and Lila's shift from psychology to data science at Leonardo. We'll discuss the challenges and opportunities for women in STEM, how Leonardo supports diversity and career growth, and the innovations shaping their industries from aerospace to AI. Tune in for valuable insights on building a career in engineering and tech, and advice for young talent looking to make their mark in these fast evolving fields. So, firstly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Great to have you all here. Um, Look, good place to start, I think, in any kind of conversation like this is just finding out a little bit more about each of you, your journeys, and how you ended up in your current role. So, Kristy, let's start with you. You know, you transitioned from university to industry and from a more technical to maybe perhaps a less technical role before then returning to engineering. Could you share your journey along that route and kind of how you ended up in your current role at Leonardo, please?
Yeah, of course. I grew up in a small town surrounded by aviation. Probably tell from the accent, it's in Scotland, a little town called Prestwick. If anyone knows it, usually people don't. And I'd always been fascinated by aviation, but probably not until I was a teenager that I thought about seriously making it a career. I actually wanted to work in media and journalism, which is probably a complete 180 of what I do now. And I transitioned through that kind of learning curve, wanting to be a pilot, first of all. But I thought, better go to uni, get a degree, have something figured out until I knew how to fund being a pilot, 'cause it's not cheap. So I went to the University of Glasgow to study aeronautical engineering, and I graduated in 2020, which was, a very famous year in all our calendars. So that was interesting trying to navigate coming out of university into COVID. But during university, I suppose there was a time where I became a bit frustrated with academic engineering, but I knew I still wanted to stay within the aerospace industry. So I applied to be a service capability development graduate, which is a mouthful and a half, at Leonardo. So this was a new role completely. There hadn't been any graduate roles that covered this before. But essentially it looked at how we improve our capabilities through business and technical solutions. So a little bit of a mixture of both for me. Naturally, though, I gravitated back towards the technical side and ended up doing engineering roles anyway in this role. So then I asked to become a systems engineer, and I later on moved teams to work where I am now on Tempest, which people might have heard of. The Tempest flight trials aircraft where I am today, and I basically ensure the integration of our subsystems so that we can demonstrate all of our future technologies, and basically put them on the aircraft so we can fly them about and demonstrate hopefully what's gonna happen later down the line. But I think two main takeaways from my journey today is that you don't need to know exactly what role you want, or area, to be honest. As soon as you leave university and school, I'm probably quite a prime example of that. And also make clear what your goals are when you do know them, and where you want to be, as often it does get you there quicker. That's for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, some great tangible advice there, I think, for anyone listening in. And look, we're going to find out a lot more about your journey, I'm sure, as we move through the podcast and some of the particular areas that you've kind of focused on and some of the things that you're passionate about. So thank you so much for kicking us off there, Kristy. Henrietta, coming to you next. So look, coming from Hungary, entering the UK's engineering field, you've had a fairly unique experience as well. What motivated you to kind of pursue that engineering career? And how did you end up at Leonardo in this manufacturing engineer role?
Very good question. So I was born in Hungary and moved to the UK when I was 14. It meant starting a new life, and I had to adapt to the new culture, which was a big challenge itself. And the one thing that really lit my passion for engineering was when I did a work experience, which was mandatory through secondary school. And by a family friend who said, "Look, come have a look what I'm doing." He was working at an engineering company in Bristol. And through him, I went, what can I lose? I've sort of gone in, I've seen how the business works. He gave me a very good opportunity to speak to different people around the business. I went to operators, went to designers, business managers, sort of site leads, which really gave me a good insight how a business works. And one thing that really stuck with me is how proud people were talking about their own jobs, that they're making something in the aerospace industry. And I thought, that's somewhere I wanted to be. And I chose the apprenticeship route. So I did a 4-year technical apprenticeship with a company in Bristol, and it really gave me a good opportunity to learn as well as get some industry experience, sort of rotate around the business. I went through quality, a lot of manufacturing engineering, sort of assurance, and I've also done loads of measurements, which really gave me a good idea of where I wanted to be. And I joined Leonardo when I was ready for my next step. I really wanted to be somewhere that aligned with my personal values as well as my passion for innovation. And Leonardo has offered me such a great opportunity to contribute to something so much more exciting. And so I could work with advanced technologies, and I work with such a forward-thinking environment, which also gave me an opportunity to develop myself. So I've joined Leonardo 7 months ago, where I began my current journey, which is supporting the manufacturing and development of dynamic composite components for helicopters. And my journey just been so much more, not just about work, but it's been about finding myself in the industry and being resilient and finding a purpose as well with a company that supports my values.
Fantastic. Excellent. And I think, our next topic, I think, is really going to delve into that. I think it's incredible to hear that, during this time with Leonardo, you have kind of found yourself, as you say, and you've, been supported in that journey. I think that's something that we're really going to delve into next. But look, before we do that, last but not least, certainly, Lila, let's hear about you. So your path to data science started out in psychology, which again is quite unique. So we've got 3 people who've all gone a very kind of unique journey here. So what sparked your interest in tech, and how did you find your way into the world of kind of AI and data science at Leonardo?
I also, much like Kristy, didn't have the most normal route in. So I'd always had quite a big interest in tech. When I was 11, I worked out how to hack into my dad's laptop that he'd forgotten the password to. And then throughout being a teenager, on my own time, tried to get involved in it, from repairing PCs to trying to learn to code in Python when I was in about year 9, because I thought it'd be really cool to be a hacker. But that kind of died off as I got a bit older and went to sixth form and picked my A-levels, etc., none of which involved anything to do with tech. I don't think computer science was even offered at GCSE or A-level, the places that I went. But when I went to university and did psychology, I learned statistics as a massive portion of the course, and because obviously as part of science you have to do a lot of quantitative and qualitative statistics. And doing R as part of my degree really ignited a passion in me, and it actually led to me teaching myself properly to code in Python and JavaScript, not like I tried to do when I was a bit younger. As I'd always found it really cool, the idea of working in tech. Obviously, much like Kristy, I graduated from the University of Glasgow in 2020. So obviously the world had changed, and I was trying to think what kind of jobs I could do that would still be around, given that we were in a worldwide lockdown. This actually led me to getting an internship at a startup, which helped me combine my sort of, at that time, still quite amateur coding skills, but obviously with my sort of acute advanced statistics and research methods knowledge, I was able to sort of unlock the world of data science. And yeah, the rest is history. Went from that job to getting a job here at Leonardo, and yeah, have gone from coast to coast to become the lead.
Fantastic. Excellent. And just out of interest, how did you go about learning those languages? I'm always interested in just what approach people take to actually learning.
So it's obviously hard to learn on your own. I was always very internet savvy. I loved reading and researching and reading forums about stuff. So I did a lot of Googling and watched some YouTube videos. And then the biggest source of my learning was this website called Free Code Camp. So they offer free sort of tuition or videos and workshops, etc., in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and Python. So yeah, I just really went through it with that. YouTube, giving it a go myself. But it was definitely through my internship that I really honed in my skill.
Fantastic. No, thanks for sharing. Because one of the common questions we get from listeners is, what steps can they take? And I think just any kind of tangible, actionable advice you can give around that is always, music to the ears of anyone listening who's maybe looking to break into the same field.
My biggest recommendation in that respect is start with the fundamentals. Python is the easiest language to learn. You can learn Python fundamentals. There's millions of websites, Udemy, etc. All have free courses. If you start with that, then you can start trying to do some more fancy stuff. But Python fundamentals is the place.
Yeah, for sure. Great place to start. Awesome. Thank you so much. Look, as I've kind of foreshadowed a little bit, I suppose, the next kind of topic we're going to focus on is women in STEM, particularly encouraging diversity and some of the kind of initiatives that go on within Leonardo in order to affect this. So Kristy, we'll come back to you on this. So look, engineering is a field that's often seen as very male dominated. I think the statistics very much back that up. What do you think is the most effective way to create space for women in engineering? And how can we address challenges like imposter syndrome for women entering the industry?
Yeah, I believe firmly that visibility is one of the most important tools that we can use when it comes to women in engineering and STEM. I'll say the cheesy quote, you can't be what you can't see, but that really resonates with me because I couldn't see a lot of it when I was younger. It is hard for younger people to dream up things they can't see. And, we all get discouraged to go down a career path if you can't see yourself in it, even if that's subconsciously. I also think it's crucial to give people an insight into what engineering in industry is like versus what the misconceptions are. Some people probably don't even realise that their dream job is an engineer, as they might think it involves activities and elements that aren't true, or might be true for some engineers but aren't for the other. So it's so vast that definitely you need that insight. Coming on to, you mentioned imposter syndrome. This is a big one for me. I very much, I wouldn't say suffer, but I do get that imposter syndrome probably on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that I try and talk about quite a lot because I think there needs to be a cultural shift in how we approach imposter syndrome in the workplace, not just, engineering, but across probably a lot of workplaces as well. I probably get it a lot more now than I did in university. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure, but you definitely are kind of more in the same boat when you're all at uni together. But the more I speak to people, I realise that it's actually a problem most people face, even those you would never think that it impacts, which is something that I've learned this year. But yeah, I think creating a more open space around imposter syndrome and the ways to combat it is something that I'm passionate about. So whenever I get the chance to speak about it, it's like it's not a stigma. We should talk about it more often, because I do believe it would unlock a lot more potential within people, including myself. Absolutely. And this is a topic that I really do feel for, and I'm actually undertaking a kind of internal project on proposing improvements in the way that we share knowledge, and obviously assumed knowledge is something that always makes imposter syndrome worse. You do feel silly for not knowing something really niche, and it sends you into a big spiral, even though it's completely justified that you don't need to know everything. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaways on how we'll encourage more people in and kind of tackle those issues.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so easy to assume that other people are so confident and they always hit the ground running and, they take these things on and it's so easy for them. But actually, when you speak to anyone out there, I think imposter syndrome is real for, not, okay, maybe the odd narcissist that kind of can go through life without it, but the majority of people like will come across it. But for sure, it's amplified when you can't see others in the room that, are from that same background as you or share those same characteristics as you. So yeah, I think it's very relevant to this particular topic in particular. Henrietta, we're going to come to you next. So you've actually been working to create visibility and opportunities for young professionals in engineering. So, really nice segue there from Kristy's kind of answer around, the need for more visibility. So, from your perspective, how can the industry ensure more women and underrepresented groups feel encouraged to pursue engineering careers? And what barriers need to be broken down in order for that to be achieved?
Thank you. This is something I am really passionate about. I've supported so many initiatives through my career, from school through my apprenticeships, loads of STEM outreach programs to create more visibility and real opportunities for young people, especially those who don't see themselves in the field or people that just join engineering. So I supported loads of apprenticeship or apprentices that joined the company from a young age. For me, the key beliefs are really representation matters. When young women and sort of unrepresented groups don't see people like themselves in the field, it's harder to imagine it. And as Kristy said, if you can't see it, you can't really be it. And I feel outreach should start really early on, like primary school age. It's important to show everyone that engineering can be creative, impactful, and it is open to everyone. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to do specific things to be an engineer. It is open for everyone, and it also really links a bit neurodiverse thinking, and it is so good in engineering, so it should be cherished. And I also really believe in sharing personal journeys, not just the wins, not just the highlights, but also the challenges, because let's be real, not every job is just happy moments, and it's good to also have that reality going. Not everyone's having just good days. There's always bad days, there's always challenges, but through collaboration, talking to each other, these can really break down. And going on to the second half of your question, sort of barriers that need to be break down, there is a lot of areas with lack of confidence. So many capable girls and minor students talk themselves out of engineering before they even tried it. And I really encourage work experience, summer internships, because you get to have that insight into your career or your future career to think, that's something I want to do. And sometimes you think, well, that's not something for me. But through conversations, your connections, you find something that you're really passionate about. And the industry can do so much more to such like pair people together. Mentoring schemes are really great when you talk to someone who's a professional and they can tell you what's good, what's bad, how they feel like it, and providing flexible pathways. Myself coming from an apprenticeship background, it's important to highlight that not everyone has to follow the same path, and there's non-traditional, traditional route, doesn't matter. There is a lot of ways, and each person will find their own path. You don't have to all follow the same path. And that's why I really care about supporting young people. And I know what it feels like to be invisible. So providing those platforms, not just as a company, but as sort of an industry, to have these platforms for young girls, minority people, make themselves feel seen, and just to show how powerful one sort of opportunity can be. For me, having that work experience changed my life. I found a passion and a career which I'm currently, and that's a big change. And if I could provide that opportunity or be that mentor for someone, it is such a great feeling. And not necessarily doing the same role as I'm doing, but just to help them understand what they want to do and have them a passion, or help them find their own passion. Because everyone discovers, or everyone deserves a chance to discover what they want to be and their passion and what they are capable of. And it doesn't matter where their journey starts.
Fantastic. Really, really well said. I really want to dig into, exactly what that advice would be that you would give to someone, who is a little bit more junior or is thinking about making that leap into engineering. But I know we're going to round things out with some advice for aspiring professionals and people that are looking at the industry. So I'm not going to steal our own thunder from the final section just yet. But something for, anyone out there listening to stay tuned for the kind of, the last section where we're really going to focus on that kind of tangible advice. So Lila, let's come to you. You've designed coding workshops and promoted STEM to young girls. Like, what do you think is the best way to show young people, especially women, that tech and data science are viable career paths for them? And how does Leonardo specifically engage in initiatives like this to help build a more diverse tech workforce?
I think the number one best way is to just show young girls role models of successful women in the careers. In my previous job, my boss, Karen, was such a massive role model to me. And she showed me what was possible as a woman in this industry. And she was also a massive advocate for women in STEM and data. I definitely didn't have role models when I was younger. I even remember my friend's dad, who worked in IT, when he saw me trying to learn Python, telling me it wasn't for girls, which had a massive impact on me. And research that I've done outside of Leonardo in Scotland also showed, you'd have entire cohorts of students doing physics, and there'd be like 1 out of 200 students would be a woman. And obviously not accessing these subjects earlier on in life, sometimes it's changing, but can make it harder to get into them as you get older. But I think when it was delved into with these girls, it was because they couldn't see people like them doing these subjects. They didn't want to be the only girl in the class. So I think going back, I think that's the biggest way, is role models, seeing successful women Leonardo is extremely forward-thinking in its approach to diversity and underrepresented groups. So earlier this year, Leonardo enabled myself and a colleague to actually design and deliver a workshop to school-age girls in data science, which is now being facilitated across schools by the UK STEM team. And we also actively try to recruit via agencies that promote women in data and cyber and STEM. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think more and more companies are taking less traditional routes into STEM careers, which obviously helps.
Fantastic. Again, yeah, really, really well said. As promised, we are going to come back to this advice topic by the end of the podcast, because I think it's really, really important, for anyone out there listening in who is considering that move, that they hear from voices like yourselves, because I think all three of you have really touched on the most important thing is visibility. So hearing your opinions and having that advice direct from all three of you, I think is going to be crucial for anyone listening in that is thinking about making that move. But before we do that, let's focus a little bit on the kind of innovation, the challenges in your field, your roles, and the kind of tech problems that you're grappling with on a day-to-day. So let's stick with the order. Kristy, we're going to come back to you. So look, you've worked on some exciting projects in aerospace, from flight testing to fighter aircraft. What innovations in aviation are you most excited about, and how do you see these impacting the industry in future?
I mean, where to start? How we develop aircraft is changing, and I've only been in the company and in industry for 4 years, and I've seen that firsthand. We're looking towards solutions that are more adaptable and have the biggest benefit around utilization and availability. So we do need to lean more on artificial intelligence, machine learning, remotely piloted air systems, so they don't have a person in them, which is always a fun topic, and a lot more autonomy within solutions as well. And this doesn't mean, AI is going to come and take over our jobs, but all of these solutions and technologies can be extremely complementary to what we're doing, and can benefit lots of different areas by, maybe removing some of that or dealing with some of that autonomy, such as safety, which obviously is a big topic in the aerospace industry at the moment. And looking towards the future flight test, obviously this is a topic that I keep a close eye on, and how we're testing newer and more novel ideas, because we're doing stuff that we didn't think was possible, and how we test that is obviously going to change as well. So something we need to catch up with as ideas become bigger and more different than before. So, for example, the aircraft I work on is called the Excalibur Air Flight Test Aircraft, which I think is one of the biggest flying demonstrators in the UK for a number of years. Don't have that exact statistic, but we've not done it for a while, and which is exciting in itself for me. So obviously, that's what excites me, and that's why I work on it. But the impact to the industry, or really any kind of new innovation technology within aerospace and defence, is it will create jobs that do not exist today. And I remember someone telling me about this when I was at university, and I was like, no, that can't be that quick. No, it honestly does. Something maybe to bear in mind and utilise to your advantage. Keep an eye on the trends, what's coming in, what's being created, what's where the innovation's sitting. And make sure you're aligned with it, because you will discover jobs, that do not exist at this moment, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose that loads of me not to ask, given we are on a podcast and we're a recruitment provider. Are you hiring within your team? Is it a team that's growing? Do you need more resource to help on the project?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely, and this is across, probably a lot of engineering companies, but obviously within Leonardo as well, because we want to voice our company. But there is definitely a shortage of engineers, and that's something that we've seen over probably every project. So absolutely, it's somewhere that you can, even if it's not a role that you kind of want firsthand, as soon as you're in there, the flexibility within our company is incredible. I've moved between lines of businesses, between kind of different projects, from working, not on equipment to being quite equipment heavy. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunities just now, and we have apprenticeships. We've got degree apprenticeships We've got modern apprenticeships, but we also have grad schemes as well, which has just got a new revamp as well. So those will be coming out probably quite soon, I imagine. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. And obviously, if you're not kind of at that age and you're looking for that mid-range, we always have something going on. That's for sure.
Fantastic. Excellent. Yeah. So, if you're just starting out or you're an experienced, embedded engineer or someone who has those relevant skills, then if this has piqued your interest, then certainly do check out the links in the comment and get in touch. And we'll make sure that we can hook you up with Leonardo, because some fantastic opportunities within the business. Henrietta, we're going to come to you next. So you mentioned how engineering isn't just about equations, but it also requires strong soft skills. So how do you see these skills playing a role in the day-to-day work of engineers? And how did Leonardo in particular help engineers develop these particular competencies?
Absolutely. Engineering is not just about technical skills. It is solving equations. In the real world, being a good engineer also means being a good communicator, a collaborator, and a problem solver. And I think these three skills, which sort of classed as a soft skill, are really important in engineering. Communication is really key, whether it's presenting ideas, talking to your team, or writing reports, or explaining problem topics to others. Even if you're looking for a solution, it's important to have the communication skills. So in short, clear communication is key. Most engineering projects are cross-functional. We work with each other all the time. So working with other people from different departments, sometimes even different countries, it's really important to have that communication skill and collaborational skills. And I think another skill, which is being adaptable. Projects change so often, so priorities shift, and being able to stay calm and make a decision based on these rather than just sort of quick, unrational decisions. So having that critical thinking is very important. And at Leonardo, I have seen a big commitment into growing these competencies. So all of the employees have got access to self-learning platforms. So we got LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, which is a paid subscription through the company. So we don't pay anything, but there's millions of courses relating to our day-to-day jobs, but also anything else. So I've done like personal development skills, how to write my PDP, and those short courses, which is self-led, just help me understand how to navigate through those. Leonardo also runs a couple really good courses. There's a central development called a program called Springboard, which is made for women who want to take control and become more assertive. They also run a navigator program, which is for males. And I think one of the most exciting courses that Leonardo is running, it's called Success to Lead, which is a 2-year program for future leaders. And it is a very involved cross-functional course, and having these courses available to all employees, anyone can apply. It also gives that if you want to be involved with the company, hands-on courses, obviously involves your time, but then also having that section when you can, if you want to study something on a weekend, you have those platforms where you can self-learn, or you thinking you want to understand a bit more on psychology or quality or a different business function. Having those free courses available, it helps you understand the business more. And also these soft skills really help you grow, lead, and make a lasting impact, which is really good to be working for a company which allows and gives you time and these resources. And Leonardo also really values these skills for me. So that's why I joined Leonardo, because I've seen posts, I've seen how it changed people's lives through these courses, but also knowing that I could self-learn. If I'm not confident enough to go to these courses just yet, I can take a lead on my own development through the self-learning courses.
Thank you so much. And look, really, really great to hear that Leonardo actually invests so much time and energy in personal development, right? You hear a lot of businesses pay lip service to this. It's great to hear, all of these tangible examples of the things that Leonardo is doing. And couldn't agree more around that kind of well-rounded skill set, those soft skills, to Kristy's point around, you might come into the business in one role, but then there's an opportunity to move horizontally into other areas. And those are the transferable skills that allow you to adapt quickly, that you can bring from one role to the next. So by investing in those, you make your staff more diverse and more flexible, I suppose, and give them opportunities to move around within the business. So that can then benefit Leonardo as well by having those opportunities for people to move and do different things. So yeah, all kind of joins up, which is really nice. Fantastic. Lila, we're going to come to you on this as well. So looking ahead, in data science and AI, I guess is probably pretty tricky, right? The speed that AI is moving at the moment, kind of trying to predict what the next thing will be, probably a bit of a challenge. But what do you think, from your perspective, that next big breakthrough will be, and how do you think it will impact businesses or society at large?
Obviously, it's a massive question, and I can rub my crystal ball, but I won't be able to give you the answer. In my opinion, I think the biggest breakthrough will be through large language vision models, which is a form of generative AI. Whilst this does already exist, I think we will start to see generative AI heading towards artificial general intelligence, so more similar to how humans work. And I think this will just have dramatic impact on automation, our ability to generate intelligence from data, etc. But more importantly, I think it will also massively change the job landscape. I believe technical roles might become less focused on ability to code, and focus more heavily on someone's ability to use code, etc., creatively, think innovatively, think outside the box. Because obviously coding is a skill and you need to understand how it works to be able to do it effectively. But in terms of writing, simple functions and stuff, I think we've seen massive leaps with AI doing that already. So I think in the future it will become even better, and there won't really be that need anymore for someone to have all the syntax of coding stored in their head at all times.
Yeah, 100%. And how much, I suppose, within your current role are you already leveraging AI in that respect? Is that something that you're already bringing on, or is that kind of on the wish list?
Yeah, so we're making moves internally to see how we can leverage AI. We also have used AI for a number of customers. AI is being leveraged across business at the moment. Even, GitHub, we don't personally use this in Leonardo, because the code that we write is more sensitive. But I know in other companies, people are using GitHub Copilot constantly. I'm sure that 90% of people have used ChatGPT. Now that Microsoft does Copilot, for enterprise, you can obviously do that in a secure way, which we have started to adopt here in cyber. So I think we're going to see AI's productivity shifts really seeping into all areas across.
Yeah, 100%. I think when, maybe 18 months, 24 months ago now, when we first started to see this real spike and, ChatGPT and the kind of advent of all these new LLMs, there was a lot of skepticism, a lot of security concerns. And I think companies quite quickly realized, if you weren't leveraging them to some level at least, then you're going to get left behind. Obviously, it's very different for a company like Leonardo, where you're dealing with much more sensitive projects than perhaps some other areas. So got to have those guardrails in place. But for sure, you need to be on that bandwagon, right?
I also think people don't need to be afraid that AI is able to do these sort of things. If anything, it's just helped you do the fun bits rather than, worrying about the sort of boring bits and the time consuming bits. Let AI do the heavy lifting so that you can focus your intelligence in a better.
Yeah, 100%. Really well said. Fantastic. So we're going to round things out as promised, with some really great advice, I'm sure, from each of our three guests today. So Kristy, let's start with you. For anyone starting out in engineering, particularly young women, what advice would you give them to help navigate those challenges and find success in the field?
I'll come in with another quote, cliche, but do what interests you. Not really a quote, but it's said quite a lot, and I remember it being banged on about when I was at school. Study something that interests you and it will follow. But it's absolutely true. You don't need to worry about finding your perfect job early on, because the chances are you don't know about it, or you won't until you're in the field. I remember being in school and having this 10-year plan, and none of it has happened. It's completely changed. Not that it's not good to plan. I do like to plan, but there's things you just can't control, and your interests will sway, and you'll find things that interest you that you didn't even know existed. So just study something or do something that you are generally interested in, because you will find pockets of it that you can deep dive into. Attend career fairs, ask lots of questions, try to get opportunities to visit companies, gain work experience. I know we're talking a lot about that, because it will give you an insight into the company, but it will also change your outlook and widen your horizons on what's out there, which will obviously dictate kind of where you go and what you want to do. Even when you leave school or university, your choices are not stuck forever. The aerospace and defence industry in particular is very wide, it's flexible. It's easy to get a feel for multiple things. Even 4 years into my career, I'm still navigating about and discovering new roles that excite me. So I've kind of recently got this goal of becoming a flight test engineer, which is now my new dream, is to go and complete Empire Test Pilot School, as opposed to my 17-year-old dream, which is to be a pilot. So they're not too dissimilar, but they are different. But ask a lot of questions. Maybe didn't ask as many questions as when I was in university or school. But I've kind of come over that hurdle of not wanting to sound silly. There's no silly questions, and I can't stress that enough. Like, that is what I want hanging on my wall, embroidered on a pillow. No question is a silly question. And that's my final piece of advice.
Fantastic. Yeah, great way to sign it off. And I'm sure you yourself, are open to anyone out there, maybe,
Absolutely.
young women looking to get into the industry, drop
Yeah.
you a message, I'm sure, on LinkedIn or
Absolutely, yes. LinkedIn, through, I'm sure through Hack Job we can get some questions to us. I think we're all sitting here going, we want to be as accessible as possible, because if we can answer one question that will change your perspective, then I'd be quite happy with that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to your original point around, if you can see it, you can be it. Like, you're the example now, right? And they can see you, and you can help them to be it. So, 100%.
Yes.
I'm sure. Fantastic. Look, Henrietta, a similar question. Do you really, what skills or experiences should young people be focusing on early in their journey to set themselves up for success?
I think people looking into careers in aerospace and defence, I would say focus on being curious, being adaptable, and being open-minded. Technical skills are important, so don't worry if you don't know anything right or everything right away. Do build a foundation of maths and physics, because it helps you teach how to approach problems logically, and it can also help you understand the why behind what you're doing. So understanding a little bit of that physics behind it is really important and helpful. But you don't have to be a genius at equations to be a great engineer, because it involves a broad range of creativity. And for me, an advice for young people in general, to get your hands on as early as you can. Join STEM clubs, attend taster events, take part in competitions. And I think that goes on to my next point, is do a work experience. Even if it's for a week in the summer while you're on school holidays, it's important to have that work experience, because you go in, you're not expected to know everything, but you get an insight on what is that job you're interested in actually looks like. And having some soft skills, again, going back to it, is learn to work in teams, classmates, communicate your ideas, and manage your time well. These skills, which are good during work, but also when you go to interviews. And I think being open to different pathways. I know university is one route, but like I did, there's apprenticeships, which are also really good. And a lot of companies like Leonardo offers like career changes, people that are returning to STEM and want to take on a different role. There is a lot of transitional jobs out there, which you could just go and be open-minded. You don't always have to sort of climb the ladder. There's always you can move sideways. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And as being said, there is no wrong questions, and there's no silly questions. A question is a question. It is just sort of gives you a chain of thought, and experience asking those questions with a fresh pair of eyes. It opens up a lot of sort of food for thought. So putting yourself into environments where you can grow, volunteering, part-time job. And I think my main advice is you don't have to have it figured out from day one. What's important is taking a small step, being curious, and just keep learning. Aerospace and defense is full of so many exciting opportunities. And if you're passionate, persisting, and willing to learn, I think someone would already have, if you have those skills, you already have the skills you need to be a great engineer.
Yeah, 100%. Really well said. And as you say, right, that question can be the thread that you start pulling on that leads to a much wider discussion and whiteboarding and all sorts of different things, right? And you can go down some really interesting rabbit holes. And Yeah, I think, what really shines through in both your answers is it's really about being proactive, right? I'm going to use my own cheesy phrase now, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And actually, I think there is something to that, right? Sometimes that first step is the hardest one, but just taking that, and whether that's reaching out to Kristy on LinkedIn, whether that's looking for career fairs, whatever it is, once you take that first step, you can build that momentum. But people almost stop themselves taking that very first step because they're scared of what might happen, or getting a no, or whatever else it might be. So yeah, I think definitely kind of shines through from both your answers there. Um, Fantastic. Look, Lila, you've led initiatives to encourage young women to pursue STEM, particularly in tech. Like, how do you think the tech landscape will change in the next 5 years? And what role do you see young talent playing in that transformation?
Good question. I guess just to echo Kristy, first, you don't need to worry that you didn't do the perfect subject or have the perfect skills or have it all worked out. So young people listening to this, if you're in sixth form or university, I'm the prime example that I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, and I didn't even know data science existed until after uni. So I think on that note, we'll get a lot of young talent from non-traditional backgrounds coming into the industry. Especially as it's more widespread that, you don't need to, come from those traditional backgrounds, and that these careers exist, with podcasts like this one, that showcase not only useful info, but also show young people role models. Because I think much like the internet boom and the social media boom, etc., young people's innate ability to utilize tools like ChatGPT, because they've grown up with them, and to utilize the internet, etc., will allow them to think far, far more creatively, and outside the limits of previously determined possibility, to create those next generation tools we currently can't even conceive of. AI is such an exciting industry, and there's so much scope and possibility with it. But I think with less focus on, coding speed or ability in the future, I think it will encourage young talent to become more focused on the theoretical underpinnings of AI, and where it can go, which will in turn, I think, help innovate the field further. The underlying theory that made ChatGPT and other LLMs possible was only released in 2018. A-level students that are currently sitting their A-levels at the moment will likely go on to make similar breakthroughs during their university careers in the next 5 years. I think for any young people listening, to be a great data scientist, you obviously just need good problem solving skills and analytical skills. So by practicing those skills, and all the young people that will be going into the tech landscape in the next 5 years, when it's probably completely different to how it is now, I think people with those amazing skills are what's going to transform the industry.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I think really, really well said, really well summarized. Fantastic. Look, before we wrap up, I always like to give everyone the opportunity to get anything else off their chest that they haven't had the chance to share yet. So before we do kind of wrap up, firstly, this has been a fantastic conversation so far, and thank you so much for all of your insights. But would anyone like to share anything else at all with the audience? Anything at all that you haven't had the chance to cover? No.
I was just going to say take a plunge, because it's something I didn't do when I was younger, and I probably missed a lot of opportunities. So just keep saying yes to things. That's all I would say.
Don't be scared.
Mm.
This industry, even if it feels like this industry isn't, like, you don't see yourself as the right person to be an engineer or data scientist or an aeronautical engineer or whatever, if it's something that interests you, you are that person. Don't let anyone tell you.
Be open and ask questions. I think that's just, be proactive. And if you know you want to do something, go try out. If you don't know, still give it a try. Might not be your thing, but at least you tried, and it's not for you. But you might find through there what your real passion is, and just give everything a try.
And just because you start doing something doesn't mean that you have to do it forever. You might become an engineer for 2 years and go, actually, it's not for me, and I want to be a pen tester now, or whatever. I'm going to go work in marketing, but it's fine. You can do lots of different things.
Absolutely, and it's not wasted time either, right? In those 2 years, you'll build up a load of skills, whether that's soft skills, resilience, adaptability, and even just having context of how different roles work, particularly within a tech organization. If you go into a business analyst role, but you've been a developer and you understand how the product is developed, that's going to be crucial information in setting yourself up for success in that role. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
100%. I don't think there's enough focus on that. On if you're doing something like I think there needs to be more focus on it's okay to change careers.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long you've been in there. If you've been there for 20 years or 2 years, doesn't matter. If you feel like your passion lies somewhere else, go give it a try. And it's okay. Nobody's going to say, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, it's just important to have, like, highlight that and it's okay, and tell people that's fine. And some other people do it. And it goes back to having that role model and visibility of people that done it. So to go, if they done it, I could do it as well.
That note, it's also never too late to start. I know we've focused a lot on young people, but obviously if you might be 30 or 40 even, and decide that actually I want to switch to a tech career or an engineering career. I taught a course to a bunch of older adults that wanted to learn data analytics and science for the first time, and I've watched on LinkedIn all of them go on to have successful careers in the field. So it's never too late to start.
Yeah, I think really, really, really important point to highlight. We work a lot with tech returners, and we see people that make that later stage transition, because look, the days of a job for life have kind of finished, right? And don't get me wrong, there's people out there, I'm sure, that will work for the same company for 40 years, but that's the anomaly, right? And even if you do work for the same company, you're probably going to change roles within it, or roles evolve so quickly these days, right? We've talked about AI 5 years ago. The roles each of you were doing would have been totally different to they are today. So I think people need to get more comfortable with the fact that, you will make these transitions, and where you are today, you're going to learn, you're going to build, but you might be doing something totally different in 5 years, even if you stay in that same kind of vertical, in that same sort of space. Yeah, I think, really, really well summarized at the end. Fantastic. Look, thank you so much to each of you for joining us today. Yeah, it's been a really inspiring chat for me. I'm sure for anyone out there listening in, particularly young women in technology, but, as you rightly pointed out, people of all ages, people of all backgrounds who are looking to make that transition into technology, I'm sure have been inspired by each of your journeys. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been good.
Thank you.
Cheers. And thanks, as ever, to our wonderful audience out there for listening in. This has been another episode of the DevLab podcast, joined by Kristy, Lila, and Henrietta from Leonardo. Please check out the podcast description for all sorts of relevant links in terms of directing you towards Leonardo, and how you can kind of start that conversation and perhaps start that journey with Leonardo as a business. Please remember to like, share, subscribe when it comes to the podcast, and we shall see you all next time. Thanks. Stop this.